watching The Swingmen, presented by the 94 Feet Report.
Welcome to The Swingmen's first round preview, presented by the 94 Feet Report. I'm your host, Simon Cherin-Gordan. The regular season's over. Guys, I'm excited to get the colloquial ball rolling here. We've got a smaller team today, but we've got two of our best. So we got Josh Cornelissen of 94 Feet Report and Hoops Habit. Josh, how you doing?
And I'm doing great. I just want you to know I'm going to start training so that I can make my NBA debut at age 33 and set the new record for oldest player to make a debut and score how many points, how many threes, whatever. I'll figure it out.
Whatever it takes, I'm sure you'll get there. We also have Patrick Oxford, site's draft expert. Patrick, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Simon. And the record Josh is going to set is rebounds.
I like it. So I'm looking forward to this show. We did the awards-themed show last week, and we're going to keep this focused on the first round. And as we go through the playoffs, we'll look at each round as they come up. But let's get right started here. We have the bracket laid out. And some teams, last day of the season, a lot was up in the air with who would face who. A lot of teams are happy with who they got. A lot of teams not so happy. Let's look at the teams that are happy, though. Who got the best matchup they could have asked for, starting in the Western Conference? We'll go to Patrick.
Oh, yeah, I think the Warriors got the best matchup they could have asked for, Simon. The Spurs are on their last legs right now. They know that even a slight injury to LaMarcus could spell the end of them. And without Kawhi coming back, and I know we'd all love to see him come back, but he's not going to, so I'm going to go with the Warriors in the West.
The Rockets swept the Timberwolves 4-0 in the season series. And I just think that they have too much firepower, Houston that is, for Minnesota to keep up with. I think that Butler played a lot of minutes the last couple games and is only about 6 weeks removed from surgery. And I think he's not going to be able to sustain that. And unless Tom Thibodeau shows that he's able to really, get the ball to Karl-Anthony Towns more than Andrew Wiggins or Jeff Teague, which he couldn't even do consistently when Butler was out. I just think the offense is not going to be at the level it needs to be to keep up with Houston. And I think the Rockets are just going to roll right over.
Yeah, Josh, I think you're right about that, but that's why I would also go with the Warriors. I think Minnesota would have loved to face the Warriors. They've had some success with Towns going against Draymond Green, and the fact that the Warriors avoided that and got the Kawhi Leonard-less Spurs is certainly good for the Curry-less Warriors. Let's go over to the East, though. Josh, back to you. Who do you think got the easiest draw in the Eastern Conference?
I actually think it was a perfect marriage for both Boston and Milwaukee. I think from Boston's side, if you're looking at the three options they had going into the last night between Washington, maybe and Milwaukee, the Bucks were the clear pick there. The Bucks have a negative net rating on the season. So even though they ended up at the 7 seed, win above Washington, they were much worse over the course of the season than any of the other playoff teams on either side of the bracket. And so with the inconsistencies there, the fact they have an interim coach, I think that's exactly who Boston wanted to play. But on the flip side, Boston's who Milwaukee wanted to play because their options were Cleveland, Philadelphia, Toronto. Obviously, you want to play a Boston Celtics team without Kyrie Irving, without Gordon Hayward, without Marcus Smart, and even without Daniel Tice. Let's not forget him. And so I think that Boston and Milwaukee both got the team they would most want to play, and that's going to make for probably a really exciting series.
Yeah, Josh, I think I agree with you. Boston and Milwaukee, both relative to what you'd expect for their seeding, got really easy matchups facing each other. But I want to take it to another team in the East. The Raptors, I think, are going to demolish the Wizards. They look like a broken team with Wall back. They don't know how to play offense, it seems like. Marcin Gortat doesn't like playing with Wall. That's been made clear. Wall doesn't respect what Gortat brings with his screening and rolling. And I think there's just a lot of dissension in that locker room, and it's going to come to fruition this playoffs.
Yeah, great answers, guys. I'm going to go with the Cleveland Cavaliers, though. To me, Cleveland was a team that was pretty vulnerable in the first round, depending on what they got. Now, when Philly rose up to the top half of the East, that changed a little bit. But drawing Indiana, to me, is perfect. The Pacers had a really successful regular season, and they're one of my favorite teams to watch. But I just think that they snuck up on a lot of teams this year, caught people by surprise. LeBron James didn't really play defense this year. when he's engaged, he's going to be a force. And going up against this team, needing the Pacers to win 4 out of 7 is just like, I can't see it happening. And I think it'll give Cleveland a chance to get on a roll and find the momentum they need to get back to the finals. Let's move on to the other side of it, though. Which teams got the worst matchup to you guys in each conference? We'll go to Josh to start this one.
So interesting, based on your last comment there, Simon, I actually think the Cavaliers got the worst matchup here. So they were very close to being in the 3rd seed, which means they would have played a weaker team to start, probably Miami, and then they would have been able to play Boston in the 2nd round, assuming Boston won, or maybe Milwaukee if the Bucks pulled the upset. That's a much easier path than having to play first Indiana and then Toronto to get to the conference finals. And sure, everybody wants to say LeBron, he always sweeps the first round. He doesn't lose in that, in the Eastern Conference. But the Pacers won the season series 3-1, and that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to win the playoff series. But consistently, Cleveland struggled to stop Victor Oladipo. They don't have a wing stopper anymore on this team. That's a huge weakness for them. And so Cleveland basically has to just try to outscore the other team. And Victor Oladipo has had a breakout year, and he's one of the guys who can keep up with LeBron in scoring points. Now, I'm not saying something crazy like the Pacers should be favored, but Cleveland had a much easier path ahead of them, and by losing to the 76ers, last weekend and falling to that 4 seed, they got a much harder draw, and I think that there are going to be a lot of knockdown, drag-out fights, and it's going to be a much harder, slower path for the Cavaliers to advance this year.
I think the Pacers-Cavs games are going to be really hard fought. I'm not sure if the series length is going to be all that long, but there are definitely going to be some slobber knockers in the games we do see. But for my hardest matchup, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Heat. Drawing the 76ers as hard as they've been playing without even Embiid playing, it's just a really tough matchup. They've been playing like a number 1 seed, and they haven't even had their best player. It's yet to be seen how soon he can come back or with what color face mask. But he's going to be dominant when he does come back, and the Heat have to collect the wins while they can.
Patrick, I think, there's too much of a talent disparity between Miami and a healthy Philly. Let's go over to the West to close this segment out. Who do you think had the toughest draw out West?
Simon, I think the Jazz and the Thunder both got the hardest matchups out West, drawing each other. I know it's expected, being the 4-5 matchup, but both teams are just so strong looking in, and I don't think the Rockets are looking forward to playing either team in the 2nd round. They're hoping some technicality happens and they get a bye and they don't have to play one of Westbrook or Gobert. But either way, it's going to be a hard-fought matchup where both teams put it all on the line, and I'm looking forward to it.
I agree with you, Patrick. I think the toughest draw is probably the Utah Jazz. They were 1 win away on that last night against Portland from being able to step up into the 3 seed. Similar to Cleveland on the other side, being in the 3 seed means you get an easier opponent in the first round. You get home court. Plus, in the next round, they would have faced an injury-riddled Warriors team rather than the rolling Houston Rockets. But by losing to Portland, Utah fell down to 5, which means instead they have to go on the road to start their series against the Oklahoma City Thunder. And look, the Thunder have had their hiccups, so it's not like Utah has an insurmountable opponent here. But the Jazz have been playing really well, and they almost earned home court advantage. And by not getting that in the first round, it's going to be a lot tougher to pull the upset against a Thunder team that has a lot of playoff experience on that roster. And so I think it's going to be very interesting to see whether Utah, which kind of captured fire in a bottle, is going to be able to keep that going in the postseason, or if things are going to start to slow down and become a little bit more difficult for them.
We alluded to it earlier with the Houston Rockets facing the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves, to me, got the toughest draw. With their backcourt defensively going up against that Houston backcourt, look, they can put Jimmy Butler on whoever they want. Whoever he's not guarding is going to torch them. And I think, again, Minnesota would have been a lot happier drawing the Warriors and certainly getting into the 3 through 6 range. Let's move on to talking about individual player matchups, though. There's so much talent in the league right now, and this playoff field is pretty well balanced. Despite some of the injuries we have, we're just going to have awesome positional battles and guys going one-on-one that'll really, especially in the postseason when, individual talent kind of wins out. What are you looking for in terms of, mano-a-mano matchups here that are going to catch your eye and also be really important for determining who advances out of the first round?
I think a really fascinating matchup is going to be in that 4-5 showdown in the West between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Utah Jazz. I think they have two really good and somehow still underrated centers. The Thunder have Steven Adams from New Zealand, just a bruiser down there. And Utah, of course, has a Defensive Player of the Year favorite in Rudy Gobert, just completely guarding off the paint. I think that Gobert has the advantage, in his ability to guard the rim to prevent shots, plus in the nickname department, Stifle Tower, the French rejection, the Gobert rapport. So definitely need to give him props for that. But Steven Adams has better offensive rebounding numbers. I think he really can kill teams there. He's an incredible screener and has a pretty good persona himself with this whole Aquaman looking thing he's got going on. So deeper than that, though, I think there's a little bit of chippiness that'll happen because Rudy Gobert and Adams were taken in the same draft, and Gobert knows that the name and the draft slot for every single big man taken ahead of him in that draft. Gobert went 27, Adams went all the way up at 12. And so I think that Gobert wears that as a chip on his shoulder, and I think that's going to cause this matchup to be even more testy.
Josh, I like where your head's at with the matchup. I'm going to go with a slightly different answer. I don't know if position was originally part of the question, but I'm going to cheat a little bit. Go Gobert versus Westbrook. On one end of the court, you have Westbrook screaming towards the rim, Gobert protecting it. That's going to be an interesting matchup. And then on the other end of the court, we all know Westbrook gets a little bit ball tracking happy, and we'll see if he can balance his efforts bumping Gobert while maintaining. I'm guessing he's going to be guarding Ingles, maybe Rubio. We'll see who he guards on the weak side, but whoever they have him guarding, he's going to have to balance that the bump on Gobert with his recovery, and it's going to be interesting if he can balance those things. And like I said, on the other end of the court, there's going to be maybe a Westbrook poster, maybe Gobert denies said poster. I'm excited for it. That's all I know.
That matchup's going to be fascinating for so many reasons, and I'm excited to see what Westbrook is able to do there. I don't really see a guy on Utah who can check him. Corban is on the show now. Corban Ford, 94 Feet Report podcast. You know him well. Just jumping in here, Corban. Do you have a matchup you're looking forward to? And also, welcome to the first round preview here.
Appreciate y'all. Thanks for having me on. I'm really interested in the New Orleans Pelicans versus Portland Trailblazers matchup, particularly at the point guard position with Damian Lillard on one end and Jrue Holiday on the other. Damian Lillard's pretty much been averaging about 27 points per game and 7 assists on 43% shooting. And he's led, obviously, the Trailblazers to the third seed. They've been playing really well up until this last rocky stretch in the past week, and he's largely the reason why. On the other hand, though, people are kind of forgetting that Jrue Holiday has been playing very well and almost a legitimate second fiddle to Anthony Davis since DeMarcus Cousins has been out. And he's been doing that on 19 points and 6 assists on 50% from the field. And so that matchup to me is very interesting, particularly on the New Orleans side, because for Jrue Holiday, not only does he have to bring that offensive scoring load, but he's also the Pelicans' only real viable defender that can stick on Damian Lillard and also not be a negative on the other end of the court. Rajon Rondo, his days of playing defense are long gone in that aspect, especially on playoff Damian Lillard. And Etuan Moore and others can swing in there for spots, but that's not really ideally what the Pelicans are going to be going with. And also, Damian Lillard is going to be mostly fresh on his end playing defense because he's usually sticking in the past 4 matchups against the Trailblazers, Etuan Moore. And Etuan Moore is a very good shooter, but he's not really a threat off the ball. And this was a stat I actually got from the Ringer here. He's guarded Lillard, Jrue Holiday, on 127 possessions this season, while Lillard's guarded him only 65. So the best way for Jrue Holiday to really make an impact on Lillard is to wear him out on the other end and just constantly attack on offense. Maybe then the Trailblazers will have to swing Lillard back onto Jrue Holiday, and that will even the matchup more. But I'm really looking forward to seeing the two of them go at it.
Corban, I can't believe you're talking about playoff Damian Lillard and insulting Rondo in the same sentence. What about playoff Rondo? You have no hope for that. I'm looking forward to a matchup in that series too, and that's at the big man position. I'm kind of looking for if Jusuf Nurkic is able to have a similar impact defending Anthony Davis, because he's Portland's only option there. And look, Nurkic can get out in space, but that's a tall order. If he can, I think Portland will be fine. But AD is a load. Let's go over to the Eastern Conference, though. I'll throw this one out to the group, whoever wants to start it. What matchup are you looking for the most in the East?
I think a really key matchup is going to be in that 4-5 matchup I was talking about before. LeBron James and Victor Oladipo are each crucial to their team's success. The Pacers, in fact, were winless in the 8 games that Oladipo did not play this year. And it may seem like he came out of nowhere and perhaps is a little overrated, but the combination of usage and efficiency, the scoring, the way he's leading his team, that just screams star. And I think Oladipo really has broken out. So you've got the Pacers, who are utterly dependent on Oladipo to generate high quality offense. And on the other hand, you've got the Cavaliers, who are really dependent on LeBron, probably both for offense and defense. And so each team has their star that they need to score to win. And so it's going to be interesting to see how much each team leans on their guy during the series. Both Oladipo and LeBron had usage rates over 30% during the regular season, which only about a dozen players did. So that shows how crucial they are. And I think that as the playoffs happen, that those usage percentage could just go up and up and up. And we could end up having a one-on-one showdown where LeBron goes down and scores, and Oladipo comes right back and scores himself. And you probably want to favor the Cavs in that kind of a shootout, but Oladipo has been incredible, and I think we should all probably start doubting him. He could do anything.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Miami-Philly matchup. It's not going to be from game 1 because we don't know when Embiid is coming back. But when Embiid and Hassan Whiteside go up against each other, it's going to be spectacular. Hassan Whiteside insists that there's no beef, but after this series, there's definitely going to be a beef because let's just face it, Embiid is disrespectful. He's going to dominate and he's going to be disrespectful. And if Whiteside doesn't respond, honestly, I wouldn't blame him for not responding, but other people will. So he's going to have to respond in some way, whether it's with his play or with his words. Hopefully it's with his play. Hopefully Spoelstra doesn't park him on the bench. But it's going to be a fun matchup, and it's just, wow.
I'm really also interested in the East, only with the Raptors and the Wizards, and they're both backcourts. I'm going to cheat a little bit and use both players on each backcourt rather than 1-1. I think Wall versus Lowry is going to be very captivating, especially given Lowry's playoff struggles and Wall still working himself back into form. On the other hand, Bradley Beal and DeMar DeRozan, man, it's really going to be cool to see them go at each other and also defend each other. And although the series may mostly be decided by the bench, and ideally you'd hope these two great backcourts cancel each other out, looking at the individual matchups and seeing whether Lowry and DeRozan are able to show up, this year and bring a strong player performance, and whether Bradley Beal and John Wall can really just keep it together along their team long enough to really make a strong showing. I'm looking forward to seeing how those contrasting styles, Wall's blazing speed, which Lowry, unfortunately, he plays quick, he just can't match. At the same time, DeMar DeRozan picking his spots, and how Bradley Beal is going to attack that on the other end. That's really, really intriguing to me.
Yeah, I like that answer a lot, Corbin. I'm going to cheat here a little bit too and go with Giannis Antetokounmpo versus Brad Stevens. So this matchup is just all about one coach having a huge edge over the other. No, I'm not going to bet on Joe Prunty, as Corbin put out last time. But I'm also not going to bet on anyone on Boston being able to go down and score, point for point against Giannis Antetokounmpo with Kyrie Irving out. So the question will come down to, is Al Horford, Marcus Morris, Jaylen Brown, are these guys enough to slow Giannis, enough to make the coaching edge that Boston clearly has the difference in this series? That's going to be fascinating to me. Sticking with that kind of team concept, just overall series that you guys are most excited for. Just one. We're not going to go both conferences on this. We have 8 series to choose from. Patrick, what series are you most looking forward to?
Well, Simon, I've already talked about this series a lot, but I mean, and all of these series are exciting, but the Thunder Jazz is just something I'm really looking forward to because there's so many intriguing matchups, like you said. Rubio's defense, is it legit? We finally get to see in a playoff series if he can hold up over the course of 7 games with some real scouting and real team concepts and instituted against a certain player. So I just want to see every single matchup that there is to see from that series.
I'm most looking forward to the Rockets versus the Timberwolves. I think the matchup individually between James Harden and Jimmy Butler, even though Jimmy Butler is still working himself back from that injury, is going to be really cool to see. And also, this is the first time we see Cat in the playoff series, the first time we see Andrew Wiggins. You can't bet on Jamal Crawford. Actually, I'm going to stop with that joke. But basically, Jamal Crawford will be in there, and I'm sure he'll give us a game or two of good play. At the same time, how the Rockets going to defend and recover with Mbah Moute out? Is Gerald Green's defensive efforts going to be legit in this playoff series? And this is one of the best ways to put him out there.
I think one of the great storylines of the playoffs this year are some of these young cores finally getting their chance to step up into the postseason, and we'll see what they have. And so for me, that makes me gravitate towards Philadelphia, Miami in the East. We all have loved the 76ers for a number of years. Joel Embiid has been captivating and a ton of fun off the court, and he's just been dominant on the court. Ben Simmons has immediately stepped in as a two-way elite player who probably deserves consideration for all NBA and absolutely deserves all rookie and rookie of the year, I should say. And you just go down the line. JJ Redick is a perfect fit there. Markelle Fultz is polarizing. They have a ton of personalities and a lot of star talent, but they're unproven. And when you look at the other side, the Miami Heat, they don't have that star talent. Their highest paid player is Hassan Whiteside, who's probably not one of their 5 best players. They have basically a bunch of guys who were drafted late or have missed years because of injury, came up through the G League, and Eric Spoelstra has just put all these pieces together and somehow created a playoff team. And the Heat are really good in close games, and all the games between Philadelphia and Miami have been close. They split the season series. Miami won the last 2, and 2 of the 4 games they've played were decided by 1 possession. So that just tells you how close these games have been and how this series probably could go either way. Now, the Philadelphia's been the best most recently. They've won 16 straight, but if Joel Embiid's not ready for the start of the series and this stretches out even longer to 5, 6, 7 games, I think that's just better for us because we get even more games to watch a lot of these exciting players.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the series you guys mentioned, but Corban talked about the Toronto-Washington backcourt battle, and for me, that's just the series to watch. I think that Toronto is seemingly over the hump. They're seemingly a team that is built to succeed a little bit in the playoffs here, but man, that series against Washington a couple years ago, that's still fresh in my mind, and even though Washington seems to have fallen off a bit since then, John Wall's health and the chemistry is in question, those guys just bring it in the playoffs every year. And those Toronto guys don't. And man, there's so much on the line for both of these franchises and specifically the star players involved. Speaking of stuff on the line, though, I want to go on to this is really interesting to me. There's so many players in this postseason. Look, we know we have, the LeBron James, the Steph Currys, the Kevin Durant's, the guys who have dominated in the finals in recent years. But there's a lot of guys coming up. We have younger guys. We have guys in their prime who haven't been there, who are itching to get to the big stage. Who do you think has the most on the line? And in one individual player whose legacy will be the most altered, either positively or negatively, depending on what they do this postseason, guys?
Simon, I know this may be a little bit out of the box with some of the more obvious answers on the board still, but I'm going to go Kevin Durant. With Steph Curry out, if the Warriors were to take an early fall, all of the blame would be put on Kevin Durant. Curry was able to get it done before Kevin Durant got there one time. Obviously not both. Injuries happened both sides. But with him healthy, they have been successful, and I think that Kevin Durant's going to have to step up this first round. It's a cakewalk, I think, in the first round, and Curry may not be at 100% in the second round, and that's where things start to get interesting. Portland really is a tough team. Their defense is much improved this year. Nurkic is playing like I think the player that we all were hoping that he would be, especially defensively. The man has been an absolute lockdown defender. And I think that what we're going to see is a hard-fought series. Curry's going to come in, and hopefully we're going to see a healthy Curry because nobody wants to win against an injured team. But if he doesn't, Durant's going to have to pick up the slack, and if he doesn't, I don't know how it's going to be received by the general public, especially with him already announcing that he's declining his player option.
I'm actually going to take it in a different direction, and I'm going to go with Carmelo Anthony. It's been 5 years since Carmelo Anthony's last been in the playoffs. In that time, he's gone from, I would say, a rather steep decline from one of the top 10 players in the league to, at this point, a chucker that's struggling to understand that he's no longer a premier player or even a top 50 or even arguably a top 7. We can go on and on. The point I'm trying to get at now is that he's already had a rather uneven season. He came with this Thunder team that he struggled to really find his role. Olympic Melo never showed up. He's probably still in the Olympics. And, I think Carmelo's just coming to terms with that. And that is painful, and I understand that. But the playoffs, this is where this team supposedly was built for. And this team really is only going to go as far as Russell Westbrook takes them, but Carmelo Anthony gives them a higher ceiling if he can play to a level that he still holds out that he has, and that we hope he can be a very efficient third scorer who can come in and take over moments, games, and things of that nature. And so for a player of his nature, this season has already been uneven, rather up and down. However, the playoffs is really what sticks to the legacy. If you can come in with even, I want to say, a B+ postseason, just playing efficiently and really come up with some big shots for the Thunder, I think he can really stake his claim to a little more than a Chucker or a Dominique Wilkins type player into something maybe more. I'm not really sure where I'm going with that, but definitely better than we're currently looking at right now.
Yeah, I'm going to stay out west as well, but I'm going to go to the Houston Rockets. And there's a lot of baggage in the playoffs for this team. James Harden has had some famous, flame-outs as he's lost steam towards the end of years. Mike D'Antoni has his own playoff demons as well. Luckily, they don't have to face the Spurs. But I'm going to go with Chris Paul here. I think he's got the most on the line as far as reputation in the entire league. Look, Chris Paul has been incredible this year. He's consistently underrated as a top 5 player, but he's been really impactful for a Houston team that was good last year and are elite this year. Chris Paul leads the league in real plus minus, just edging out James Harden, and both on offense and defense has made a huge impact. But the legacy for Chris Paul is that he cannot get to the conference finals. Chris Paul has played in 76 career playoff games. He has never once made the conference finals. That's the most career playoff games for any player to have not made the conference finals. And it's even more egregious because of how good Chris Paul is. He's not a bit player who's just happened to bounce around, mediocre playoff teams. He's been an all-NBA type player, an all-star pretty much every single year he's been in the league and healthy. And yet he can't make it to the conference finals. And if this team with James Harden plus Chris Paul plus Clint Capella plus all the role players who have really excelled with Mike D'Antoni, the system, the 1 seed, getting to play Minnesota potentially as an easy first-round opponent. Everything's kind of lining up. Even the Warriors' injury report is lining up for Houston. This is the year Chris Paul has to show that, it was bad luck and injuries and things like that held him back, and not some sort of failing as a player. Because if the Rockets, as currently iterated, cannot make the conference finals this year, I don't think Chris Paul's reputation can recover from that. And that this will always be the first thing people think of when you hear the name Chris Paul. He has to make the conference finals this year, or he's got to live with this for the rest of his life.
Josh, I agree with you completely about Chris Paul. However, I have to go with his teammate James Harden. Now, both of these guys are under tremendous pressure because of previous postseason shortcomings, like you alluded to. The difference to me is that Paul is kind of on the downside of his career now. Still, I would say back end of his prime. He's still a tremendous player, top 10 player in the league. But this is viewed as James Harden's team. He's going to win the MVP by a large margin, probably not unanimously. There's a lot of growing LeBron buzz, but James Harden was seen as the best player in the league this season. The Rockets are seen as his team and the league's best team right now. Granted, if the Golden State Warriors are healthy and whole and the Warriors end up beating Houston in a hard-fought Western Conference Finals, no one's going to see that as an abject failure. But Harden has to get there. He's gotten there before as the number 3 guy on an Oklahoma City team, and then on a Houston team that came back against Paul's Clippers from down 3-1, even though Harden, was notably absent from the lion's share of that comeback. And then we saw what happened in Game 6 against San Antonio last year with Kawhi Leonard out. Harden just didn't show up on his home floor. James Harden is one of the best players in the league, and you have his coach, Mike D'Antoni, saying he's one of the best players of all time. Now that's a coach supporting his player, but Harden needs to rise up to that level this postseason. This is his year. This is his team. And if Paul is going to be remembered for not making a conference final, I think Harden maybe to an even greater extent, because I think he is a greater player, at least at his peak, which he's at right now. I think this is going to be a bigger stand on Harden's career than anyone else's if he doesn't at least get to the Western Conference Finals and at least play on the level of Curry and Durant, pushing the Warriors to the full extent. All right, guys, we've covered a ton of topics. We're running out of time here, but the playoffs start tomorrow, and I just want to close out running through each one of these series. We'll go in order of when these series start. I want to get your predictions for who's going to win and in how many games. So it'll all open up when the Spurs play at the Warriors Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We'll start with Patrick on this. Who do you got? How many games?
Yeah, Simon, I've got Warriors in 4.
I think that's a little ambitious. I think the Warriors offense is going to struggle a little bit more than that. And the Spurs, I think, always play to a certain level in the playoffs. So I'm going to go with Warriors in 6.
I feel like I'm taking the more safe answer here and hedging between the two of you. I'm going to go with Warriors in 5 just because you got to put some respect on Greg Popovich's name, man. Like, he's going to get at least 1. I don't know about 2, but he's going to get 1.
I think we're all in the same ballpark here. I'm going on the long end too. I think Warriors in 6. I think the Spurs are actually going to go up 2-1 in this series. And then the Warriors are going to wake up and win in 3 straight blowouts. The second game is going to be in Toronto, Wizards-Raptors, another 1-8 here. That's Saturday at 5:30 Eastern. We'll throw it back the other direction, starting with Corban. Who do you got? How many games?
I'm going with Wizards in 7. That's my one shocker. I don't think either team has the guts to win by a significant margin. And I do like the Raptors and their bench. I just don't trust Lowry and DeRozan like that. And it's been too many years, man. I have trust issues now. I can't get over that.
Sorry, I'm speechless. I don't know what to say to that. I'm just rethinking everything about my life. I think that the Wizards, everybody wants to doubt the Raptors, but the Wizards have serious flaws, and I think they're gonna, poke out. So I'm gonna go with Raptors in 6, but I think they keep that ever important streak alive, and they do drop game 1.
Yeah, I think they're gonna drop game 1, but it's gonna be a gentleman's sweep after that. Raptors in 5.
I'm gonna stick on the Toronto one here, although I really do like Corbin's take here. I'm so scared to pick this team. I think the Raptors are gonna get it done. I think it's going to take 7 games. Let's go on to the third game of that Saturday, though. Miami Heat at the Philadelphia 76ers. We don't know the status of Joel Embiid. If you guys want to factor that into your predictions, assume he's healthy, assume he's not, however you want to do it. But we'll go back to Patrick on this. Who do you have in Miami, Philly?
I'm projecting Embiid to come back game 2. I'm not a doctor or anything. It's just armchair projection. And yeah, you can put it on the scouting report already. He's coming back game 2. So, but being that as the fact of the matter now that I've stated it, I'm going to go ahead and go with the Sixers in 6.
I think a lot swings between whether or not Joel Embiid is healthy, and if so, then I guess the Sixers win, so I'm moving on. But if he does not come back healthy and or not to his complete effectiveness, I really trust that Eric Spoelstra will come up with a defensive scheme that will make the Sixers really work, while also exploiting Ben Simmons' flaws. And we do have to remember that although there are some experienced players on this team, these Sixers are still a very young team. And the Heat are scrappy. The Heat will muck the game up. That's the way they like to play. And I am not exactly sure if the Sixers are ready for such increased attention, particularly on Ben Simmons. And once teams really focus on him on a 4-game series and really force him to do certain things, will he adjust, or will this be the first rookie playoff wall that, some hit? So if Joel Embiid comes back game 2 and is just back with the mask and he's just, playing really well and tweeting all over the place, then I say Sixers in 6. Otherwise, I'm going to say Heat in 6.
I feel like Corbin just hedged all over the place there and said, if this happens this, if that happens that. So that was smart. That's the way to do it. So I think that Philadelphia's inexperience has to be counted for more than most people are. I think everybody's excited. They love this team. But you want a hot take? Everybody loved the Warriors too when they were exciting and up and coming, and we're doing a lot of talking. And then they started winning, and it got old quick, and now everybody hates them. So let's just see if Philadelphia follows that same trajectory. Everybody's darlings now. But I think that they're everybody's darlings for a reason. And I think that Miami will definitely stretch this out. I think that Eric Spoelstra is a great tactician, and Embiid not being healthy right away is going to hurt Philly to start. So I think it takes a little longer, but I will pick Philly to pull it out in 7.
I think whenever Embiid gets back, as long as he gets back, the Sixers are going to win this series. I don't think it's all that close. If he's out, it's more of a toss-up. I would still go Sixers in 7 if he's out. But again, whenever he comes back, they're going to dominate. If he's back game 1, I have the Sixers in 5. Go from there. Let's go on to the last game of Saturday, though. That'll be the New Orleans Pelicans at the Portland Trailblazers. We'll go back to Josh for this. Who do you have? How many games?
I think Damian Lillard absolutely deserves to be on the MVP ballot. He's been incredible. He was pretty much alone the reason why Utah lost and Portland retained the 3rd seed in their matchup Wednesday night. That being said, Anthony Davis is even more of an MVP candidate this year. His two-way dominance has been incredible, somehow still underrated, even as we talked about whether or not he could push James Harden for the MVP. I think that this team has come together in a very real way. I think Nikola Mirotic was a perfect fit. I think Drew Holiday, as some of you guys have talked about, has been playing incredible two-way basketball. And playoff Rondo is a real thing. Rajon Rondo has been on a tear the last week and has been really helping the team. I don't know if you guys saw the end of the Warriors-Pelicans game. Rondo D'd up Kevin Durant and just stripped the ball from him. It was incredible defensive play, turned around, and against the Spurs Wednesday night was just dominant, which is crazy to think of because the other 80 games of the season, he's just mediocre at best and damaging at worst. But in the playoffs, when the games really matter, something happens where Rondo is still able to flip the switch. And so I think with actual real players around him, Anthony Davis is going to be elevated to the highest level. And I think that he can upset the Portland Trailblazers. And so I'm going to pick New Orleans and Anthony Davis to get their first series win. Give me the Pelicans in 6.
I see where you're coming from there, Josh. I'm going to go ahead and go with the Trailblazers in 7. Anthony Davis is going to fight hard, just like he did last time he was in the playoffs, but it's just going to come down to the better team, as it often does.
I was trying to find, and my computer is taking too long. Actually, on my phone now. I was trying to find Rajon Rondo's playoff stats in the West because I think it's like a 2-game, just horrid numbers. But playoff Rondo exists. However, when you swing to the Western Conference, I don't know. So I'm going with the Trailblazers, and I'm going with them in 6. I think that Anthony Davis is going to do a Yieldman's job of just putting up numbers and pounding up boards and really taking over. I expect Drew Holiday to be a very sufficient sidekick to him, and both of them will lead them to about 2 wins. But ultimately, that backcourt with CJ McCollum and Damian Lillard playing at the level he's playing at, I just don't know if the Pelicans have enough stoppers that can not only hold them in check, but also provide offense on the other end, because we do have to realize that Anthony Davis is going to get a lot of defensive attention. And once you take him out and limit Drew Holiday to a degree, or to a certain extent, unless playoff Rondo is going to turn to like a mini Steph Curry from deep, I don't see how the Pelicans are going to be able to manufacture sustainable points over the course of the playoff series.
I'm going to side with Josh on this one, guys. I'm going with New Orleans too, and I'm going to take him in 7. This might just be for dramatic effect here, but I mean, picture it, Anthony Davis going back into Portland, Game 7, everyone thinks the Blazers have it, and he just has a game of his career, ascends to that next level where he starts to become arguably the best player in the league. I don't know if it's going to happen that way, but I do want to stand by my New Orleans pick here. I think that while the Portland backcourt is a lot to deal with, Holiday more and playoff Rondo could defend them better than some, and AD is just the best player in the series to me. Let's go over to the Sunday games, though, starting with the Milwaukee Bucks at the Boston Celtics, 1 p.m. Eastern Sunday. This is the Giannis Brad Stevens series here. So we'll go back to Corban to start this one off. Who's going to win how many games?
I'm going to go with Boston in 6. I think that Milwaukee, I like them. Like I said, I don't bound Prunty, but I do think that he's done a pretty decent job, and he's been more so than Jason Kidd by a large margin, one to put in Giannis surrounded by shooters and kind of have him playing at the 5, but also defending positions 1 through 5 and also being able to wreak havoc on the offensive end. So I like that Prunty's going to be using Giannis as that weapon just all the time. Just it is what it is. But I don't trust Eric Bledsoe. He's had a rather kind of rocky tenure with the Bucks so far and in the playoffs, although I do think that he'll be able to provide some he'll get a good game or two. I don't know if it's going to be sufficient enough. I think Giannis is going to put up some numbers. The Celtics are going to, get a good scheme with Brad Stevens and kind of limit that, and they'll win a couple of ugly games. Like I said, 6 games. I don't think it's going to be close enough to go to 7. It could be, but I don't think so.
Yeah, I think that you put Game 7 in Boston, and Brad Stevens is going to find a way to win. I see the value in picking Giannis. He's probably by far the best player in this series, but Brad Stevens is by far the best coach in this series. He's only a 2-man race, of course, but when you look at just the impact Stevens has in terms of creating open looks off of multiple sets, from sideline out of bounds, baseline out of bounds, half court. He really is just a magician with his play calling.
I think this is one of the closest series, in the whole field. I think Boston's been ravaged by injuries all year, but Milwaukee's been ravaged by Jason Kidd for 4 years. So I think it probably comes out to about a wash. So I'm going to go 7, and here we go. Boston in 7.
Josh hit it right on the head, or tails. I'm not really sure. You might have rigged that also, but look, I think it's going to be a tight series too. I've gone back and forth on this one. I brought up the Stevens versus Giannis comparison. I'm going with Giannis, guys. I think that he did a lot last year against Toronto in the first round to show me he's for real. I think he put a real scare in the Raptors. He's a year better, and the roster around him is better, despite all the dysfunction people talk about. They have Eric Bledsoe now. Chris Middleton's healthier. Jabari is back. I think that Milwaukee is better than they've been. Giannis is at his best, and this Boston team just doesn't have enough talent. I'm going Bucks in 6 in this series, and like with AD in the West, the best young player in his conference is going to start to take that next step. Let's go on to the next game of the day, though. We have the Indiana Pacers at the Cleveland Cavaliers. That'll be at 3:30 p.m. Eastern Sunday. Talked a lot about this series earlier, guys, but just quickly, winner, games, anything else you need to throw in there? Josh, you're not going to flip a coin on this one, are you?
No, I'm not. I think I am going to call for the upset here, though. I think that LeBron finally loses a first-round game. In fact, I'm going to pick him to lose 2, and I'm going to say Cleveland in 6.
Agree with Josh there. Cleveland in 6, maybe 5, but 6 I think is the longest it goes.
Wow. Cavs in 5. LeBron James. End of story.
So, yeah, Corban, really, that one extra win just is too much for him to give him. So, I'm with you. I'm gonna. You know what? This is for you, Corban. Cavs in 4. LeBron is gonna just turn it on defensively. I mean, we saw them sweep this Pacers team last year. I think there's less talent in terms of a playoff series on that team this year, and Cleveland's gonna roll. Let's go to the afternoon games, though. So this is a series that I think we're all really excited for. Utah at Oklahoma City. That'll be 6:30 p.m. Game 1 on Sunday. I really don't know what direction anyone's going to go with this one. Who's going to win how many games?
I have Utah in 7, Simon. I think it's going to be a very close series, but I think that the Young Bucks, not literal Bucks, obviously, but the Young Bucks are going to take it. Westbrook, he got the triple-double this year, and it's going to be another first-round exit after another triple-double.
Yeah, give me the Stifle Tower, give me Spida Mitchell, give me Jinglin' Joe. I got Utah in 7.
I don't have all the fancy nicknames. Mr. Thunder, maybe. He won't even really be playing. I'm going to go with Thunder in 6. I mean, ultimately, Rubio can't stick in front of Russell Westbrook. If Paul George is shooting like he has been at least the past week, and I know this is a great analysis here, but even if he's not, I don't know if I think the Jazz will be stretched thin just on the sheer talent. And people forget that Steven Adams is going to give the Stifle Tower some work and might even mitigate him. So we'll see what's going to happen here. But I'm going with the Thunder pulling this one out.
I'm with Corban on this. I'm going Thunder in 5. I actually don't think this is going to be a particularly close series. Paul George, to me, is going to dominate this series. People forget how Paul George always turns his game up another level in the playoffs. That Utah has no answer for him defensively. And Russell Westbrook, I'm as critical of Russell Westbrook as anybody. Like you said, Corban, Rubio can't guard him. And look, he doesn't have to guard Rubio. That'll allow him to go for offensive rebounds, just go for steals, play the irresponsible defense he always plays, and get away with it in this series. Paul George will handle Donovan Mitchell at every moment necessary. And look, Mitchell's a rookie. I don't think this is going to be particularly close. Let's go on to the last series, though. Final game Sunday night, Minnesota at Houston. I think I know what direction we're all going with this, but give me how many games. We'll go back to Corban.
I wanted to just have y'all going crazy and say Timberwolves in 6, but I'm gonna go with Rockets in 5. I think that Jimmy Butler will rally them. They're gonna have probably a good home win, which will be great for Minnesota. And that's about all I have. I don't know if anyone can really stop this Rockets team, but if there is a team out there, it will not be the Minnesota Timberwolves. I can tell you that right now.
I'm going to be a conservative Houston fan here and say Rockets in 5.
I guess we're all in lockstep here. I think Minnesota will get one at the Target Center. Give me Jimmy Butler and Karl-Anthony Towns having a really big game. Maybe Jamal Crawford hitting a couple of big shots. But I think that's all they'll get. Houston's clearly the better team, and they're going to roll.
Yeah, no hot take here, guys. One game. There's enough talent in Minnesota to pull that off. I'm going Houston in 5 too. So kind of an anticlimactic one to end on, but we had some great disagreements, guys. Looking forward to next week getting into this as these series are underway. Before we go, any parting shots, buzzer beaters? We'll go back to Josh.
I'm just really excited for the playoffs. I think after last year, where the Warriors and the Cavaliers just rolled, and really all the excitement came from Memphis pushing the Spurs in the first round, and then nothing until October of this year. So I think that these playoffs are going to be really good, and I'm really excited about that.
I know y'all have been peeping this awesome hat I've been wearing. This is the Stat Nerd Draft Report logo. So if you want to pick one of these up, just DM me at HoopsMetrox. We can work something out.
Wow, I might get one. Aside from the playoffs, which I am very, very excited about, did any of you guys see the Big 3 drafts, man? There's some real talent. We got Amari Stoudemire in there. They got like 3 other people. You can't forget about I forget the rest of them. But the point is, the Big 3 is exciting, man. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm looking forward to filling my lonely months of June when the NBA season's over with 2K and the Big 3 and the WNBA. I mean, I'm not looking forward to that at all.
If you're looking for any last-minute NBA awards reading to do, I wrote like 1 million words on it over 3 articles for the 94 Feet Report. Check that out before you get too focused on the playoffs. But I'm really excited for the playoffs too, guys. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe and follow us on Twitter at the 94 Feet Report. We'll be back next Friday, midway through the first round. Looking forward to it.